Usually, when SpaceX plans to launch Starship, they announce the launch date and then work to complete the FAA licensing process before that date. This time, SpaceX has delayed the launch by 1 day, but there's some good news coming from the FAA that might make future launches smoother. We're going to dive into all of that in this video. Before we delve any deeper, make sure to subscribe to our channel for future updates about Starship and SpaceX's other groundbreaking achievements. Whenever a Starship launch approaches, the concern about securing the Federal Aviation Administration launch license often becomes more significant than the technical challenges or whether the Starship will successfully take off. In past launches, SpaceX has encountered delays in obtaining FAA approval, even after the rocket and all preparations were ready. For example, during the 5th flight, SpaceX had the rocket fully prepared for launch by early August 2024. However, the FAA issued the necessary license only on October 12, 2024. This delay of more than 2 months was caused by additional environmental reviews and consultations with other agencies that the FAA deemed necessary. Such delays have been a recurring issue, frustrating SpaceX and raising questions about the approval process. The 6th flight seems to mark a change in this trend. The FAA has set the timeline for this launch well in advance, with no last-minute obstacles or exceptions. This indicates that the agency may be improving its process, making it faster and more predictable for future launches. The reason for this confidence lies in how quickly SpaceX is progressing with Ship 31 and Booster 13. Everything at Starbase is moving faster than ever before, showing how much progress the company has made. Ship 31 has been stationed at the launch site, awaiting integration. On November 14th, Booster 13 was transported to the site and, within a few hours, was lifted and secured onto the launch mount by 8 a.m. Later that day, the second stage of Starship was stacked atop the Super Heavy booster. Historically, this stacking process took between 2 to 2.5 hours. However, recent improvements have reduced this time to under 2 hours. While the time saved may seem minimal, such efficiencies are crucial for SpaceX's long-term objective of achieving daily Starship launches. The stacking process has evolved over time. Initially, SpaceX utilized large cranes to lift and position the Starship onto the Super Heavy booster. This method, while effective, was time-consuming and dependent on favorable weather conditions. To enhance efficiency, SpaceX developed the Mechazilla system, a pair of mechanical arms attached to the launch tower. These arms can lift, position, and secure the Starship onto the booster with greater precision and speed. Following the stacking, the team promptly removed scaffolding from the launch deck, conducted thorough inspections, and initiated preparations for the wet dress rehearsal scheduled for November 17th. A wet dress rehearsal is an important test that simulates the actual launch sequence without engine ignition. During this procedure, both the Starship and Super Heavy booster are loaded with cryogenic propellants, supercooled liquids that serve as fuel. The wet dress rehearsal validates the fueling systems, ground support equipment, and launch procedures, ensuring all components function correctly under real launch conditions. Once the wet dress rehearsal is completed, the Starship will be separated from the booster using the tower's mechanical arms. This process is necessary to install the flight termination system. The flight termination system is a safety mechanism that can end the flight if the rocket goes off course. This ensures the safety of people and property near the launch site. Before it can be installed, the system has to pass strict tests to make sure it works as intended. Once the system is installed and fully tested, the Starship is restacked onto the booster, again using the Mechazilla arms to ensure a secure connection between the two stages. Following the restacking process, SpaceX conducts thorough final checks. The team also inspects the rocket's fueling systems, ground support equipment, and the integration between the booster and Starship to confirm readiness for launch. The launch will begin with the ignition of all 33 Raptor engines on the Super Heavy booster, generating approximately 16 million pounds of thrust to lift the combined rocket system off the launch pad at Starbase, Texas. About 1 minute after liftoff, the rocket will pass through max Q, the point where aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle is at its highest. This is one of the most stressful phases of the flight, as the forces acting on the rocket are at their peak. 2 to 3 minutes into the flight, the booster engines will shut down, completing their job of propelling the Starship to high altitude and velocity. After this, the booster will separate from the Starship upper stage. The separation process is carefully designed to ensure a clean detachment without disrupting the stability of either stage. The Super Heavy booster will then begin its controlled descent back toward the launch site. This process involves a series of complex maneuvers, including engine burns to slow its speed and precise guidance using grid fins. The booster will attempt a landing by being caught by the Mechazilla arms on the launch tower. This procedure, successfully demonstrated in Flight 5, will be refined in this mission to further improve reliability. After separation, the Starship upper stage will continue its ascent, powered by its own engines. The upper stage is equipped with 6 Raptor engines, 3 optimized for sea-level performance and 3 for vacuum conditions. The engines will work to push the Starship to its intended altitude and speed. A key test for this mission involves reigniting one of the vacuum-optimized Raptor engines while in space, simulating a de-orbit burn. This is a critical step for future orbital missions, as it demonstrates the ability to adjust trajectory and return to Earth. Once its objectives in space are complete, the Starship will begin its re-entry into Earth's atmosphere. This phase subjects the vehicle to extreme heat generated by atmospheric friction. For this flight, SpaceX has intentionally left gaps in the heat shield tiles on certain areas of the Starship to test how the system performs under controlled conditions. This experiment is designed to provide valuable data on the effectiveness and durability of the thermal protection system. The mission will conclude with Starship making a controlled descent and splashdown in the Indian Ocean. The descent process involves the use of the vehicle's flaps, which provide aerodynamic control and stability during re-entry. One of the most important changes for Flight 6 is how the FAA is handling the licensing process. Unlike previous launches, where approvals came just days before liftoff, the FAA issued the necessary license for Flight 6 well in advance. The FAA granted the approval early enough to allow SpaceX to proceed with its preparations without the uncertainty of last-minute regulatory hurdles. The FAA has also announced broader plans to update its regulations for commercial space launches and re-entries. These rules, which were introduced in 2020 to streamline the approval process, have been criticized by many companies, including SpaceX, for being unclear and causing unnecessary delays. The FAA has recognized these concerns and is now working on making the regulations more flexible and clearer. In 2024, the FAA approved 148 commercial space operations, a 30% increase compared to the previous year. Projections suggest that by 2028, the number of commercial launches could more than double. To manage this growth, the FAA has formed a review committee of industry and academic experts to examine the current rules. That's all for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you on launch day to witness this exciting moment together.